My baby was born. For the baby shower, please gift us $10,000. What? Startled by Catherine's carefree tone, I couldn't help but speak out loud. It had been years since I last spoke with Catherine. After what happened. Despite that, her wanting me to celebrate is just crazy. When I shared this with my husband, Nigel, he surprisingly suggested, let's both go and give the baby shower gift. This was absurd. But Nigel seemed to have a plan. So, I agreed to go with him to Catherine's house. It was a reunion with Catherine after such a long time. We greeted her with smiles. Congratulations on your baby, Catherine. Here's our gift for you. Nigel said, handing her a piece of paper with a smile. Catherine's face turned pale the moment she saw it. What is this? Catherine turned pale. We meet again, Miss Catherine Jones. Nigel said as he removed his hat and smirked. Seeing Nigel clearly, Catherine's eyes widened in shock. You are... She then started trembling pitifully. I'm Margaret Harris. Just turned 30. My husband, Nigel, is 35. And we have a 4-year-old daughter, Susan. We live together as a family of 3. Our life is ordinary and peaceful, but it wasn't always smooth sailing. This is my second marriage. My first marriage was about 5 years ago. Susan is my daughter with my ex-husband, Simon. Simon remarried too. To my sister, Catherine. Catherine is a year younger than me, 29. Given our close ages, we should have remained reasonably close even as adults. However, I haven't been in contact with Catherine for a long time. After what happened, it's understandable. People unaware of the situation often say things like, sisterly fight? Make up soon. But what Catherine did to me isn't something I can just let go of easily. What happened between us sisters? There were complex circumstances involved. As kids, Catherine and I were just like any other sisters. The change started when Catherine entered middle school. She realized she was pretty. She became interested in fashion, hairstyles, and started dieting. Her studies took a back seat. Catherine often got scolded by our parents and teachers. And my existence was a pressure for her. Not to brag, but I was good at academics. Which made her even more irritable when compared to me. I did my best to support her. I asked our parents not to be too hard on Catherine and even helped her with her studies at times. But it seems like things you're not interested in just don't stick. Her grades didn't improve, and Catherine dove deeper into beauty and fashion. She even started doing makeup and became a reader model for magazines by the time she was in high school. Catherine's social circle became quite flashy. Yet, she still looked up to me. Margaret, top of your class again? You're so smart, I really admire you. I brag about you to all my friends. She would say, always speaking kindly of me. Eventually, I got into a prestigious university. A year later, Catherine went to a beauty school. It was around that time when something happened that made me suspicious. I was at a cafe near the train station, working on an assignment, when I heard a familiar voice. It was Catherine and her friends. I remember she mentioned using this cafe sometimes. I felt awkward but decided to stay, as they couldn't see me from where they were sitting. After a while, one of Catherine's friends said, "Isn't this cafe near the university your sister goes, right? She must be really smart." What Catherine said next was unbelievable. "Oh, you mean that plain, nerdy loser?" I couldn't believe my ears. But it was undoubtedly Catherine's voice. Wow, Catherine, that's harsh. Are you guys not close? Not really. We just get along on the surface. She doesn't care about fashion, just buries herself in books all day. She looks so dorky. I'd hate to run into her in town. She's always studying hard, getting praised by teachers and parents, so she must be happy, even if she looks dorky. Catherine laughed. I was frozen, shocked and angry at what I had heard. After that, I returned home quite late. Catherine was acting as usual when I got home late. "Welcome back, Margaret. You're late. Were you studying at the library again? You're such a hard worker." I was confused. Which one was the real Catherine? I didn't have the courage to confront her about what I heard. So, we continued on as if nothing had changed. But I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. After graduating, I decided to move out when I got a job, reducing my contact with Catherine. Time passed, and I turned 25. I was about to marry Simon Jones, a classmate from university. We reconnected at an alumni meeting and hit it off. Simon worked for a regular company, but his family owned a lot of land in prime city locations, making them quite wealthy. However, that wasn't why I was drawn to him. It was his generous nature that attracted me. Before the wedding, I went home to introduce Simon to my family. Catherine was there, of course. She had become an esthetician, clearly very conscious about her beauty. Her makeup, style, and fashion were impeccable, just like a model. I was initially tense, but Catherine celebrated my news with the same untroubled laughter as before. My heart gradually warmed to her. Maybe back then, she was just a frustrated teenager. Time has passed, and we've all grown up. That's what I convinced myself of. Due to our closeness in age, Simon, Catherine, and I quickly became good friends. Sometimes, the three of us would even hang out together. If Catherine and I remained awkward, it would have worried Simon too. It turned out to be a good thing. After marrying Simon, I soon became pregnant. I had decided to go back to my parents' place for the birth. So, I consulted with them and started visiting a nearby hospital. It was a busy time. I had severe morning sickness and had to be hospitalized for a while. My parents visited, but I rarely saw Simon and Catherine. But I was too sick to worry about that. I had no energy to worry about what was going on around me. In hindsight, I wish I had been more observant then. If I had, I might have noticed something. And then, I went into labor. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Susan. But my health didn't recover quickly. So I stayed at my parents' for a bit longer. Simon, busy with work, hardly visited, leaving us to communicate mainly through emails and phone calls. Gradually, I got better, and was ready to return to the home where Simon was waiting. I wondered what he would say when he saw the baby. With such thoughts, I opened the door. "Simon, I'm home." No response. I opened the living room door, and to my shock, there was Simon and Catherine, in a compromising situation. "What?" I was speechless. Simon hurriedly dressed, but Catherine seemed oddly calm. "What's going on? Margaret! This is a misunderstanding." "Welcome back, Margaret," Catherine said with a sly smile. "What do you mean, welcome back? Explain this." "What's there to explain? You see what's going on. We're in a relationship," Catherine said nonchalantly, wrapping her arm around Simon. My head was spinning. What was Catherine talking about? Simon seemed resigned and apologized. "Sorry. I can't believe this. It's unbelievable, both of you. Susan and I are right here, and you're doing this." Confused and upset, I ran out of the house. But I had nowhere else to go. Reluctantly, I decided to take Susan back to my parents' house. While I was explaining the situation to them, my phone rang. It was Simon. "Sorry for startling you earlier, Margaret. But I've fallen for Catherine. I want a divorce." "What? What are you talking about? We have Susan." "I'll pay child support." "So?" I couldn't make sense of it. I listened to Simon in confusion. Why did he get involved with Catherine? He said he thought Catherine was cute when he first saw her. But she's my sister, his sister-in-law. We became close as a family. Then, I was hospitalized for morning sickness. That's when they grew closer. Catherine had tearfully confessed to Simon that I had always been mean to her, calling her stupid. I had never said such awful things. Clearly, Catherine was lying. But Simon believed her. He had his own insecurities too. He had gotten into university through a large donation from his wealthy family. Essentially a backdoor admission. He hadn't gotten into the prestigious university on his own merit. He felt complex about this, especially compared to me, who got in through regular admission. With this background, Simon empathized with Catherine, believing her story and becoming disappointed in me. You're smart and reliable, sure. But that's no reason to look down on Catherine. I'm disappointed in you. Marrying such a mean and nasty woman was a mistake. What are you saying? That's a lie by Catherine. Don't believe it. No, I won't be fooled. I'll sign the divorce papers and mail them to you. Wait, listen to me. My pleas were in vain. He hung up. I couldn't believe he'd fall for such a lie. I was stunned. A few days later, overwhelmed by everything, I came down with a fever. My parents, who knew everything, comforted me and took care of Susan. It was humiliating. I needed to recover quickly and fix this situation. As I was thinking this, the front door opened. I thought it was someone else, but when I came out of my room, it was Catherine. Oh, Margaret, you're here? Catherine spoke nonchalantly as soon as she returned. I couldn't contain my anger. What are you saying? What do you mean, Catherine? Lying and deceiving Simon like this? I yelled. Hearing the commotion, my parents rushed in to calm us down. But we didn't stop. I've always hated you, Margaret, Catherine said in a lower tone than usual, speaking slowly. I couldn't stand that you, just for being good at studies, received all the attention and love. That's why I wanted to take away something important from you. The house fell silent upon Catherine's confession. I couldn't believe she had such thoughts. Anyway, I'm glad I focused on beauty. Simon's just a regular guy, fell for me easily. Catherine spoke with a smile. I was speechless. So, the Catherine I saw in that cafe was her true self. What had I been seeing all this time? The real Catherine hated me so much, yet all I saw was the convenient illusion of a sister who admired me. As I stood there dazed, Catherine grabbed her things to leave. Simon's house, with your plain and nerdy interior, isn't to my taste. I'm going to change it. Apparently, she planned to stay at Simon's house. My parents tried to stop her, but Catherine left swiftly. I felt dizzy and had to sit down in the hallway. Then I heard my daughter, Susan, crying in the back room. I knew I had to comfort her, but I couldn't move. My parents helped me stand up. I don't remember much after that. I just didn't want to see Catherine and Simon's faces. After talking with my parents, we concluded that divorce was the only way forward. I cried. Not for myself, but for Susan. Simon didn't care about her at all. What a terrible father. But maybe it's better not to have such a father. That thought was one of the reasons I decided on the divorce. I quickly signed the divorce papers that were mailed to me and took them to the office. Thus, my first marriage ended unceremoniously. Fortunately, my parents were on my side. They harshly told Catherine not to come back home. Thankfully, I never had to see Catherine again. Slowly, I regained my composure. Catherine and Simon apparently got married, but I didn't care anymore. My focus was on Susan and our life. Time passed. Luckily, my job was within commuting distance from my parents' house, so I didn't have to change jobs. I threw myself into my work. The alimony was paid regularly, but as a single mother, I needed to save as much as I could. I was a bit anxious. Maybe that's why people around me were worried. One day, a friend said she wanted to introduce me to a man she knew. I hesitated at first, but she said he was a sincere person, so I agreed to meet him. His name was Nigel Harris. He was 5 years older than me, tall and well-built. Contrary to his intimidating appearance, he was surprisingly serious and kind. He had been so focused on his work that he hadn't had much experience with women. We were naturally drawn to each other. Susan warmed up to him when the three of us went out together. One day, Nigel said he wanted to protect Susan and me from now on. I was moved to tears by his words. We got married. And now we're living a simple but happy life as a family of three. I thought I had no more ties with Catherine. But then one day, while relaxing at home, my phone rang. I instinctively answered it. "Hey, Margaret, how are you?" Hearing Catherine's voice on the other end, I felt a chill. I should have checked the screen before answering. Too late for regrets now. "What do you want?" I replied, trying to sound as cold as possible. I didn't want my peaceful life disturbed anymore. Then Catherine cheerfully said, "I had a baby. For the baby shower, please gift us $10,000. What? After years of no contact, this was absurd. Especially asking for $10,000. I was outraged, but Catherine kept talking, oblivious to my feelings. She continued being an esthetician and had opened her own salon about 3 years ago. She got the land and building for her shop from Simon's parents, in a prime location. She boasted about how successful it was. Just showing off. I quickly ended the call, disgusted by her self-centeredness. Unbelievable. How could she dare call me after everything? I was still fuming when Nigel came home late that night. He's been busy with work recently, but always makes sure to have dinner at home, valuing our communication as a couple. He's always said since our remarriage, "I want you to talk about everything." Over dinner, Nigel said. "What? You got a call from that sister of yours? She's running a salon now?" "Seems like it. She got help from my ex-husband, who was quite wealthy." What's her name now?" "Catherine. Catherine Jones." After I answered, Nigel paused for a moment, then said, "I see, that explains it." "What? What's up?" "Well, how about we both go and give a baby shower gift to Catherine's place?" Nigel suggested with a mischievous smile. "What? Why?" "I don't want to do that. Just trust me, I have a plan." Later, Nigel shared a fact and a proposal with me. I was shocked by what I heard. When the weekend came, after leaving Susan with my parents, Nigel and I arrived at Catherine's house. It was a large, impressive house. "Welcome." Catherine greeted us at the door. Looking perfect despite having recently given birth. "It's been a while." "You haven't changed, Catherine," I said, forcing a smile. Then, Catherine said with a smirk, "Of course. I never neglect my beauty routines, unlike someone else who got cheated on." Catherine was just being Catherine. I was irritated but kept my composure for now. She led us to her spacious living room. A baby was sleeping in a crib. "Look, this is my daughter, Maria. Cute, isn't she?" Maria indeed looked just like Catherine, though her features seemed a bit sharp. Maybe it was just my imagination. "So, about that thing?" Catherine gestured for money with her hand. How brazen can she get? Just as I was about to retort, Nigel put his hand on my shoulder. "Nice to meet you. I'm Margaret's husband, Nigel," he said, with his hat pulled down over his eyes. "Oh, hello," Catherine muttered, uninterested. Nigel then swiftly pulled out a piece of paper. "This is our gift for the baby shower. Congratulations, Catherine." Catherine's face turned pale the moment she saw the paper. "What is this?" she exclaimed, going white. Nigel then promptly took off his hat. "Nice to meet you again, Miss Catherine Jones. I'm Nigel Harris from the Metropolitan Police Department." Recognizing Nigel, Catherine's eyes widened in shock. "You, the detective who visited my salon?" She started trembling. The baby shower gift Nigel had given was actually a search warrant. It was permission from the court to search and seize property at her home. Catherine was visibly shaken. It turned out she had been committing fraud at her aesthetic salon, tricking customers into buying dubious products with false promises of guaranteed weight loss, and signing them up for expensive and ineffective treatment plans without proper explanation. She kept repeating such actions. Despite initial warnings from consumer protection agencies, Catherine didn't listen. And the situation worsened, with more victims. And even more aggressive tactics like forcing contracts and filling out application forms without consent. Multiple complaints were filed, prompting the police to raid her salon. Nigel was the officer in charge. Nigel's profession is a police officer. However, Catherine had cleverly hidden evidence at her salon, making it difficult for the police to catch her. This was why Nigel had been coming home late lately. Coincidentally, the investigation target turned out to be my sister. Catherine's call about the baby shower gave Nigel a reason to visit her home. Fearing that going as a police officer might raise her guard, he decided to use the baby shower visit to his advantage. Thus, Nigel kept his identity hidden until the last moment, successfully entering Catherine's house. As soon as Nigel signaled over the radio, other officers who were waiting outside entered the house. "Sorry, but we wouldn't have been let in otherwise." Then, Simon arrived. "What's all this commotion? What's going on, Catherine?" Catherine could only groan in response, unable to answer Simon's pressing questions. The police officers entered various parts of the house, seizing all sorts of items in cardboard boxes. As Simon gradually understood the situation, he questioned Catherine more intensely, seemingly oblivious to my presence. In a panic, Catherine suddenly lunged at one of the officers who had entered the house. "Stop it! Don't mess up our house without permission!" she yelled. Nigel raised his voice. "Don't interfere! I'll arrest you for obstructing public duty." Hearing the word arrest, Catherine let go, a look of frustration on her face. But she wasn't one to give up easily, and glared sharply at Nigel. "I'll tell Simon's father, Daniel. He knows plenty of police officials. He can cover up anything like this." Catherine mentioned the name of Simon's wealthy father, Daniel Jones, who indeed had a wide network and many acquaintances among powerful figures. It made sense that Catherine was counting on him. Catherine turned to Simon and shouted, "You can do it, right? Your father can. He's always been donating money to various places to get favors done." "Hey! What are you saying in front of the police?" Simon was flustered. Catherine, too agitated to think clearly about her words, blurted out everything. Nigel spoke calmly. "The Jones family. The long-standing landlords. Daniel Jones, Simon's father, and a former city council member, quite a wealthy man." So what? What about it?" "He's already been indicted for bribery in a corruption case. He's currently in custody." "What? My father?" Now it was Simon's turn to be thrown into disarray. The Jones family, despite their wealth, seemed to be mired in corruption. Simon's backdoor university admission suggested a tendency to solve everything with money. "Why is your father involved in such a thing?" "I don't know. But Catherine, you were committing fraud at your salon?" "Shut up, not now." The two began a heated argument. Amidst the chaos, I calmly addressed Catherine. "Why don't you just accept it? It's embarrassing." "What did you say?" "You lied again. For years ago, you fabricated stories about me to Simon, trampling on my heart. And now, you're deceiving your customers for your own gain. No matter how beautiful you are, your heart is ugly, the lowest of the low." "You!" As Catherine opened her mouth to retort, a police officer's voice came from the back room. "We found the business computer." "Damn. Likely, that computer contained the evidence." Catherine bit her lip in frustration. Catherine Jones, let's continue this discussion at the police station. Please come with us. Catherine's face fell in despair, seemingly out of energy to resist. When brought to the station, Catherine initially denied the fraud charges. However, when the data on the computer was analyzed, evidence was found. Catherine was arrested. The charges were extensive, including fraud, coercion, and forgery of private documents. Catherine's salon, opened about 3 years ago, had apparently been in the red from the start. She had aggressively promoted products to secure even a little revenue. But she didn't want anyone to know about her dire financial situation. Having boasted about opening the salon, she felt compelled to claim it was thriving. Her sudden demand for $10,000 from me was likely just a desperate attempt to cover the salon's deficits under the guise of a baby shower gift. The number of victims who filed complaints against Catherine was in the dozens. Her salon sank further into debt due to liability for damages and eventually closed, leading to bankruptcy. Simon and his family, who had invested capital, were furious. And Simon naturally divorced Catherine. But Simon's household was no longer secure either. Simon's father, Daniel Jones, had also been arrested for bribery. Simon's family was scrambling for money and had to let go of all the land they owned. Simon originally worked at the real estate company run by his father. However, with his father's arrest, the company's control shifted to executives outside the Jones family. Simon was forced out of the company. He later found a job at a completely unrelated company through his connections. But it seems he is now struggling with demanding, low-paid work and having a hard time adjusting to the unfamiliar job. In such a state, he was obviously unable to take care of a child. Maria, the daughter of Catherine and Simon, was temporarily placed in a child welfare facility. It was unfortunate that Maria was born into such a family. As I reflected on the tumultuous days, I realized something. Months later, I attended Catherine's trial to see if she had shown any remorse. It felt like my final duty as her sister. But reality was not so kind. In court, Catherine kept repeating, "I'm not wrong," denying all the evidence of fraud. "I only helped the customers who wanted to lose weight and be beautiful," she argued. Her face was marked with dark circles. And her hair was unkempt, the once meticulously maintained beauty was nowhere to be seen. It seemed her lifestyle had finally taken its toll on her appearance. Catherine looked truly pitiful. I watched Catherine and thought back on everything that had happened. It all started with her jealousy of me. But I had never said anything mean to her. Our parents, initially upset with Catherine's lack of interest in studies, eventually stopped scolding her. Catherine had let her own complex feelings distort her perspective. Over time, she began lying casually. These lies continued, eventually becoming her own truth over the real facts. Now, Catherine is just continually looking away from reality. She's fabricating twisted facts, not thinking for a second that she's in the wrong. And this is the result. Poor Catherine. Eventually, the verdict was given. Due to the severity of her actions, she received a 3-year prison sentence without probation. It was only to be expected. Yet, I can't help but hope she will come to her senses. I wish she would consider, even a little, the pain of those who suffered because of her lies. I hope she can take a good, hard look at herself while in prison. Months later, on a certain holiday, Susan, Nigel, and I were at the park. We spread out a picnic on the grass, enjoying a light picnic atmosphere. "Let's eat sandwiches quickly. I want the tuna one." "Hey, Susan, leave some for your dad," Nigel said, and Susan laughed happily. We were back to our happy, normal life. Thinking back, the family I grew up in was also a peaceful one like this at first. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that I'm not perfect either. I have moments of envy too. But rather than hurting someone with petty jealousy, I want to cherish feelings of compassion for others and focus on the small joys of everyday life. That way, I won't be consumed by negative emotions. watching Susan and Nigel happily eating their sandwiches. I silently wished for these peaceful days to last forever.